call, starting with President Lunahara,
Yeah.
Vice President Chaput, present, Treasurer Weddle,
Here.
Secretary LaSorsa, Vice Treasurer Hookinson, Chief Justice Wu, Chief of Staff, Director of PR, Director of Wellness and Inclusion. Pro Temp Ludewan is excused. Senator Beckman. Senator Fisher is excused. Senator Capo. Senator Khan. Senator Novak. Senator Pena. Senator Ritchie was excused. Senator Rose. Advisor Artajani. Advisor Wadsworth. Webb. CFB. Wildcat Media. Wildcat Esports. College Council Rep. SAC. And Res Life. All right. That concludes roll call. Moving into the approval of the minutes, starting with last week's minutes. Is there any discussion for last week's minutes? All right. Seeing no discussion for last week's minutes, we'll go into voting. Does anyone not approve of unanimous approval? Seeing no disapproval, that passes unanimously. Moving into the approval of the agenda for today. Is there any discussion for today's agenda? Senator Novak.
I'd like to make a motion to put Resolution 2526-22 at the top of old business.
For a resolution to put 2526-02. Sorry, restate that resolution number again.
2526-22.
To the top of old business. Is there a second? Seconded by Senator Beckman. Going to discussion of the motion. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, we'll go into voting. Does anyone not approve of unanimous approval? Seeing no disapproval, that passes unanimously. Back in discussion of the agenda as a whole. Treasurer Weddle.
I'd like to entertain a motion to have roll call voting for all motions made during today's meeting.
We have a motion for roll call voting. Is there, who's so heard? So heard by Senator Beckman. Is there a second? Seeing no second, that motion dies. Senator Novak.
At least I didn't want to section that because, without trying to get into too much detail as it is personal information, there was a high chance that I will be forced to leave early, and if I leave early, we will lose quorum and we will have to end the meeting as I will not be returning, and therefore, even though roll call vote is good, it will slow things down, and we should probably get as much possible discussion done as possible before I have to leave. I yield.
Alrighty. Is there any more discussion for today's agenda? Senator, Treasurer Weddle.
Last week, there were several members with motioning power who attempted to reopen discussion on a bill that passed last week. Given that this concerns the election and the election is being announced today, I would like to entertain a motion for a brief discussion period on this bill immediately following the approval of today's agenda. I'd be happy to explain more if that's so heard and moved. I leave that to the Senate. I yield.
Is there a so heard? So heard. Is there a so heard? So heard by, so moved by Senator Khan. Is there a second? Second by Senator Rose. Going to discussion to the amendment of adding a discussion for, was that Bill 2526-18 after the approval of the agenda. Is there any discussion for this? Yeah.
Did we pass the motion to move Resolution 2526-22 up?
Yes.
And this will go before it?
Yes. Seeing no discussion on the motion to add discussion for Bill 2526-18 that was passed, we'll go into voting. Seeing as there's no discussion, does anyone disapprove unanimous approval? Seeing no disapproval, that passes unanimously. Back in discussion of today's agenda. Is there any discussion for today's agenda? Continued discussion. Seeing no continued discussion, we'll go into voting. All those in favor of today's agenda, please raise your hand. All those who disapprove, and all those who abstain, that passes 6-0-0. Alrighty. Going into discussion of the Bill 2526-18. Is there any discussion? Treasurer Weddle?
The main reason for asking for this motion is some members of our Senate that are here today weren't here last week. I think they should have an opportunity to add anything in that they'd like for the discussion of this bill. It's a pretty significant overhaul of policy. There were also some things brought up in open forum last meeting that this bill just doesn't really address. One of them is whether or not the Chief Justice has a training period, right? It seems minor, but it's not outlined, and as this was intended to be a comprehensive overhaul of election policy, I think those are sort of things that we should be looking to correct, especially before the election begins. Once the election begins, my understanding is election committee will be using whatever policy is in effect at the start of the election for the entirety of the election, so we don't have, shifting expectations throughout the whole election. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, one of the items that was added into this election policy, which is completely new to how we run elections and student government at SUNY Poly, is the barring of candidates from elections. Currently, the only candidates who are barred are those who were previously removed from an election. It doesn't cover those who are impeached or removed from office. Those people held power, misused their power, were removed from office, and are allowed to run again whenever they wish. I am of the personal opinion that that seems a little backwards, right? If we want to prevent certain individuals from running in an election, I think we should be focused on those who have actually had the trust of the student body placed in them to hold a certain office, to hold certain authority, and then misused it in some fashion or another that ultimately caused them to be removed from office. Just a point of clarity, I do see some hands raised, and I'll let you all speak. The bill was sent out as an attachment to last week's agenda, so if you just look for last week's agenda and minutes, you should see the bill that was passed. I don't think any amendments were made during last week. I yield. I apologize. Yeah, I yield.
So I guess I just have a point of clarity. You asked for the motion to discuss the past bill, right? But that's not a motion to reconsider. So I guess if you're looking for changes, is that what that original motion was supposed to be? Sure, yeah.
I apologize if I misspoke. The entertained motion was to enter discussion of that bill.
Yeah.
My understanding is if we enter discussion of the bill, we can make amendments to it. We're essentially bringing it back for discussion, which is possibly not the proper form for stating a motion to reconsider, but it effectively has the same action as my understanding. I yield.
I'm going to just yield to their advisors on just any clarification.
I think where it stands currently, it passed last week, and so if there was interest in going back to amend or revote, it would be a motion to reconsider. If that's the goal, that's what I would recommend. But as it stands, we can discuss it. It just can't be changed because, as it stands, it passed. I yield.
Okay. Senator Novak?
I just want to say first, I hear your concerns, Treasurer Weddle, but at least, and I understand that we probably should be putting something that limits people who got impeached put on there. My problem comes to then barring people who are striked or removed because of strikes from being barred from the election. Currently, under current policy, people who receive 3 strikes are forbidden from running in elections for the rest of the academic year. I know that does, they're allowed to then run next year, so that kind of, if we make the change, it'll be barred from next year. But the current strike system and the current strike appeal system is not the best, hence why I created a bill to try and change the strike appeal system. Under the current system, if you get a strike, you appeal it. By the way, I promise this is on topic. If you appeal it, it goes to your supervisor and an advisor to look over the appeal. The problem is a lot of the times your supervisor, 9 times out of 10, is the one who gave you the strike. And if they gave you a strike, they probably will uphold the strike because they believe the strike was valid in the first place. Therefore, it makes appealing a strike HUD. I mean, I know it's HUD still to get 3 strikes, but appealing them is as HUD, and it's very unlikely you will ever get a strike appealed unless the person who first sent in the strike has a change of HUD. And because of this, the strike system, as it is currently, is not the most accurate with determining if a person removed from strikes is truly someone who abuses power or shouldn't be in power, or if it's simply something that just happens because of mistakes or because of disagreements within how policy is run or how policy is interpreted.
All right. Treasurer Weddle?
I apologize for the miscommunication to the Senate and our chair. The original intent of the motion I was asking for was to allow for some of these things to be corrected. For example, as Senator Novak brought up, we have some problems with strike policy. I understand that bill's on the table, but realistically, I don't think we're going to get to it today, right? And if we're using whatever's in place at the time of the start of the election, then we have to go under current policy. So as far as being able to fix some of the things in this bill that passed last week, the intent was to reopen discussion, reconsider, whatever the terminology is that you want to use. So I would just like to ask the Senate if they would be willing to so move a motion to reconsider so we can correct some of those things that aren't covered. I yield.
Was that are you entertaining?
Yes, I apologize.
Okay.
Entertaining a motion to reconsider, bring back to the table. I don't know exactly what wording you're looking for, but I hope the point gets across. I yield.
All right. Is there a second? Second by Senator Rose. Going into discussion on the reconsideration. Senator Beckman?
Election committee can choose which regulations they follow if it's changed during the I yield.
Yeah, so basically it was determined in our executive board that it's whatever is the current operating policy. If it gets changed during the election, that's a different story, but before the election, it's whatever is current. Is there any?
Clarification. I don't know if that fully explained. It was determined that whatever the policies are at the conclusion of this meeting is what the current election is going to go based off of, because there is no way we can continue to flip back and forth, change everything 100 times during the election. So whatever it is at the end of this meeting is what it will continue to be. I yield.
Is there any more discussion for the reconsideration of Bill 2526-18? Treasurer Weddle?
To entertain a motion to modify the candidacy form to state.
We're not in the
I
discussion of the bill
apologize.
itself. We're still in the
My
motion to
apologies.
reconsider. Is there any more discussion for the motion to reconsider? Seeing no further discussion, we'll go into voting on the motion to reconsider Bill 2526-18. All those in favor of reconsidering Bill 2526-18, please raise your hand. Huh? No, we didn't. None of you seconded the motion for roll call voting. All right. All those opposed and all those who abstain, that passes 5-1-0. All righty, we're now in discussion of Bill 2526-18. I'm going to yield the floor if accepted by Chief Justice.
Oh, sure, but I also had a question.
Do you accept the?
Yeah.
All right.
But I had a question. Do we want for this to be timed with 5 minutes for each senator to discuss on this bill, or do we want freedom?
It's House rules. No motion was made to change that.
Do you guys want 5 minutes per person, or does anyone want a motion for unlimited speaking time? I yield to Senator Novak.
I'd like to make a motion to, one, limit discussion of this bill until 1:10 p.m. and also to have unlimited discussion for the entire meeting. 1:10. Yeah, for the specific bill.
Now going into discussion. Anyone like to discuss? Webb?
State what thing in House rules you're suspending, though, right? For your motion, it's like a.
I put in exactly as our Chief Justice said, and said unlimited discussion. If that is not enough, I guess that can be reinstated. I leave that to, I guess, our advisors to give the final say on.
Can you restate the motion that you made?
The motion was to limit discussion of election policy bill to 1:10 p.m. and to allow unlimited discussion on for each senator for the rest and the audience member for the rest of the meeting.
Advisors?
I would say that's pretty clear until 1:10 p.m. when the discussion of this is concluded.
All right. Any more discussion on the motion? Unanimous. What? Seeing no discussion, we will move into voting. Can I get, sorry, I had a cheat sheet for this, and I'm looking it up right now for the exact wording. Seeing no further discussion, going into voting for the motion on this suspension of House rules. All those in favor? 6. All those opposed? All those who abstain, that passes 6-0-0. Now moving into discussion of the Bill 2526-18. Vice President Chaput? Oh, second.
Agenda was already approved. Oh, wait, sorry. I don't know the fucking term.
We did vote on it right after Grayson's motion.
So we're in discussion of the bill.
I would like to send this to the secretary. Do we have a vote? We do have a vote on the agenda. Do you guys forget because we didn't do roll call? Do you guys not remember voting because it didn't take like 30 seconds? You approved his vote 6-0-0, and then we did the approval of the agenda directly after, which was also 6-0-0. Aiden. All right. Moving into discussion on the bill. Vice President Chaput.
Sure, I would like to entertain a motion to remove. Oh yeah.
Per Robert's Rule of Order, isn't a motion to reconsider can't be made after like the meeting adjourned? That's what I was made aware of.
I would like to ask if the wording is adjourned because the agenda was approved, but the meeting was not adjourned. Oh, except for if you're counting last week. Senator Khan, do you have a citation of which Robert's Rules and where it is so we can look at it? Okay, thank you. No problem. Senator Novak?
Chat GPT it, and then if I see like,
No, you can't look at generative AI for Robert's rules. I'm not sure if it'll give you the right answer.
The only thing is,
Well,
yeah,
just to get the citation.
yeah, to get, and then look in
And then
actual
look at
Robert's
Robert's
rules.
rules.
That actually
Okay.
seems reasonable.
Well, you can try. Senator Novak?
Robert's Rules of Order Renew Revised, 12th edition, under Section 37, a motion to reconsider must be made during the same meeting or the same session in which the original vote occurred. Under Section 37 of Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised edition, 12th edition, a motion to reconsider must be made during the same meeting in which the original vote on that motion happened.
Okay. So then my question is, we open up discussion sometimes, so doesn't that, like, we reopen?
Treasurer?
Some clarification, I suppose. The entertained motion, the first one that was made, right, which was just to have a discussion period on this bill, that was clarified by the chair as to not actually allow amendments. It was just discussion of the bill itself, right? So that's why that second motion was made. I thought I was clear when I communicated to both the chair and to the Senate that the intent was to allow for amendments to what is passed. There are other motions not explicitly reconsider. You can amend something previously adopted. That was truly the intent. I tried to communicate that as best as I could to both the Senate and, of course, our chair. I thought the intent of what the Assembly was trying to do, which was return to make some corrections to what had passed last week, was clear. So I guess I'm a bit confused as to why we wouldn't proceed as are. We can certainly make a motion to fix the minutes, or as the minutes haven't yet been certified, I imagine the secretary would be happy to just update the minutes. If that makes sense to the Senate. If that doesn't, please, I don't know, speak up, I guess. I yield.
Secretary? All right. So I found where it says that in Robert's Rules. It is indeed 37:10B. The making of this motion is subject to time limits as follows. In a session of one day, such as an ordinary meeting of a club or a one-day convention, the motion to reconsider can be made only on the same day the vote to be reconsidered was taken. I would like to yield to Senator Beckman.
Read out that definition. I yield.
I yield to the advisors.
Reconsider a motion of American origin. Enables a majority in an assembly within a limited time and without notice to bring back for further consideration a motion that has already been voted on, in this case, a bill. The purpose of reconsidering a vote is to permit correction of hasty, ill-advised, or I don't know what that word is. What is it? Erroneous action, or to take into account added information or a changed situation that has developed since the taking of the vote.
Clarity. For information, under Robert's rules, there's technically there's no such concept of legislation. So all legislation counts as motions, which is why also this does affect legislation, even though it specifies motions, because under Robert's rules, legislation is not a concept.
Any more discussion, or are we still looking into this? Treasurer?
I guess I can just restate the intent of what I stated to the Senate when I asked for a so moved after we went into that discussion. When it was clarified to me by the chair that the discussion did not include the ability to make any amendments to what had passed, I asked for a second motion from the Senate that would allow us to make amendments during this period of discussion. I think the chair stated motion to reconsider. I think the correct motion to state would be to amend something previously adopted. I think that's what the Senate had in mind. I mean, my understanding was that the Senate approved the motion with the intent to allow for some changes to be made to what was passed last week, which really is an motion to amend something to previously reconsider. I'm just going to yield back to the chair.
And could I ask the Senate for a raise of hands who knew that he specifically wanted to vote and change this when he said discuss? So, okay, I would like to ask for a raise of hands who thought that when he made his first original motion and also then his second motion that he wanted to change. Actually, the first motion, who knew that he wanted to change things when we were still in discussion of the agenda? Raise your hand. So 4 of you. And then the second one where he clarified, did all of you know, even though we weren't in the approval of the agenda anymore? Okay. Beckman?
In a motion to reconsider, which is essentially what we did. The words were said, so you have to say the actual correct motion. If he wants to rescind and then redo, that's fine. But at this point, we're in a motion to reconsider, which does not seem to be allowed. I yield.
We are in the current bill, actually.
Okay, well, we had a motion to reconsider, which is not allowed. So So we shouldn't be in the current bill because we did something that wasn't allowed.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want, we can try it again with this correct motion. I yield.
From my understanding from reading through this right now, there is no correct motion for this.
Chair.
Advisor?
I think that I think that Senator Beckman's correct. That's my personal opinion, because any amendment to previously passed legislation is just a bill. That is what a bill is. It amends legislation that was previously created. So if there was an amendment that needed to be made at this point, if a motion to reconsider and bring something that was passed already back, any amendments to that, it would just be a bill from here on out, would be what I would say. Kathy's shaking her head, so I think that we're on the same page here. So that's what I would recommend. And because the motion isn't technically valid, Kathy and I could talk about it, but I don't know that we can discuss the bill. I yield.
Senator Novak.
I only see one way of getting around this, and that's through a new formula motion. And I would like to make a motion to...
We're already in a motion, unless we are... we're in the bill.
Yeah,
we have to get out of the bill.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to suspend Robert's Rules, Section 3710B. Therefore,
If the motion to reconsider was not allowed, are we not not in it, should we not simply return to the most recent period in which we were not in violation of Robert's rules? That period, for clarity, would be when the original discussion period, right? The discussion period that didn't allow for any amendments. We're just in this discussion period. The previous two motions to limit discussion until 1:10 and to the motion to reconsider would just be voided in the sense that the original motion to reconsider should not have ever been allowed, and then any subsidiary motions to that motion shouldn't have been allowed either. Does that follow? I'm seeing some nodding. Okay, I
My
yield
motion
back to the
is
chair.
Still allowed because we are not in a motion. If it's justifiable or right to suspend Robert's Rules, Section 37-10, subsection B, that is up to debate, but I'm still allowed to make the motion to suspend that, which would then allow us to reconsider the bill, as that's the only subsection of disallowing us to reconsider.
Considering that we are in null and voided motions, that means that we are about to go into the motion to discuss the new senator thing, and I would like to yield the chair to... No?
We are in the discussion period that was added to the agenda.
To just discuss this bill. All right. So do I need...
And then we still need to go through the process of if that motion
Okay.
is seconded or not.
Yes, I would like to yield the chair. I would like to yield the chair to Vice President Chaput.
All right. We are back into just the discussion period of Bill 2526. Again, you made that motion when we were not in a valid motion, so you have to remake the motion if you'd like to make that motion. So is there any continued discussion for 2526-18? Senator Novak.
A motion to suspend Robert's Rules, Section 37, subsection 10, subsection B.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Senator Pena. Going into discussion of the motion made. Senator Beckman.
I yield.
Senator Novak.
That motion would suspend the specific subsection, which is the time limits on a motion to reconsider, therefore allowing us to legally be able to reconsider the bill as subsection 37, section 37, subsection 10, subsection B is the main thing that prevented us from reconsidering in the first place.
All right. Senator Beckman.
Why can't we just do this with a bill? We have a lot to get through, and we're wasting a lot of time. I yield.
All right. Wildcat Esports. Senator Beckman.
It seems is that the Chief of Justice doesn't have a training period. That can be put in later. We have enough time to pass a bill after that. I yield.
Treasurer Weddle.
There were a number of concerns. That was the first one that came to mind that I brought up when we first got into this discussion period, but I think there are a lot of other things beyond that, right? People have been kicked out of office, being able to run again is one of them. The other thing I guess I would just ask of Senator Novak, would it not be easier, rather than suspending portions of Robert's rules, just to make a motion to amend something previously enacted? I'm going to yield back to Senator Novak to answer that.
So from what I got from discussion before, we cannot do any amendments without putting a bill, and since we've already passed the agenda, we cannot put a new bill in. Therefore, suspending this one article is the only way to discuss and amend the election policy. Otherwise, we would have to wait to next meeting, and by that point, the election would have already started and would be using the election policies that were passed last week.
Senator Rose.
Treasurer Weddle is referring to Section 35 of Robert's Rules, a different motion not to reconsider, but to amend something previously adopted. I think we can't motion to reconsider, but we can potentially amend something previously adopted. But I think since we're already going in the motion to to strike that portion of Robert's rules, I think we should just go with that for time.
Our advisor?
Though, that is correct, but your policies state that bills have the purpose of the establishment, amendment, or repeal of policies. This is a policy that you're trying to amend, and so if you want to amend something in your policies that is currently enacted and you are unable to reconsider it, right now you have to put in a bill. That's your own policies. You have to follow your own policies. So while it is in Robert's rules, again, we follow your policies first. I yield.
Senator Beckman?
Precedent where we can just start amending every bill, because this doesn't have a time stamp, a time limit on it. So if we start pulling this specific regulation, or whatever it's called, then we have a dangerous slope we're going to start going down. I yield to our treasurer.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I do want to add that this motion has come up before. It hasn't come up this year, to my knowledge, but it's come up in previous years where there's been bills that have passed and it's felt that they need to be reconsidered, and this is exactly what happened, right? We couldn't do a motion to reconsider since it was past the point. It was a different meeting from when the bill had been adopted, but a motion to amend something previously adopted was made. We went into discussion, the Senate made the changes that they wanted to make, and then it was voted on a second time. I do see your point with regards to precedent, but this bill was sent out to the Senate and then it was voted on 54 minutes later. I would argue that's a more dangerous precedent compared to, having further discussion. I don't think further discussion can ever be considered a bad thing. I yield.
All right, Senator Novak?
Yeah, to follow up on what Treasurer Weddle said, we did this twice in the academic year of 2024 to 2025. The first time this was done was to bring back up and then suspend the CFB policies, which were passed in spring 2024, and we brought up the bill without using a bill, using a motion to amend, and we brought it up, suspended those policies before then adding CFB's current policies. And then we also brought it up with the esports GPA requirement for players bill, which was then rediscussed, and that happened during February 2025.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Pena? That was for a motion that's no longer, it's null and void. Our advisor? Senator Beckman?
Direct to the chair. How do we get out of a discussion period when there's nothing to vote on?
If there's nothing to vote on, then once discussion ends, it ends.
Okay.
Wildcat Esports? Correct. Yeah. Is that a motion to call the question, or are you asking for a motion? Okay. Senator Novak?
Yeah, I added that. And also, for the point of clarity, this is only 3710B. So the rest of 37 and the rest of 3710 would still be in effect. It's just 10B that would no longer be in effect. And if we do suspend 3710B, which to my knowledge we are allowed to suspend parts of Robert's rules, just like we can suspend part of our parts of policy and parts of our House rules. So if we suspend this theoretically, we could then motion to reconsider the bill, then discuss the bill, then make motions to the bill, and even re-vote on the bill as a whole. I'd
Is
also
there-
like to, I guess, since discussion's kind of gotten off of it, make a motion to call the question.
A motion to call a question, second by Senator Beckman. All right, going to voting on the call to question. All those in favor of the call to question, please raise your hand. All those opposed, all those who abstain, that passes unanimously. Going into voting on the motion to suspend Robert's Rules 3710B. All those in favor of suspending said part of Robert's Rules, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, and all those who abstain, that ties. We are back into discussion. Is there any further discussion for the motion?
Since
Mhm.
that tied, that means it fails?
That means it goes back into discussion
Oh,
on
okay.
tie. That's by our rules. Goes back into discussion on tie. That's our house rules. Our advisor. Alrighty, is there any further discussion? Senator Capo? Yeah. If need be. Senator Novak?
The election starts today. Any bill that we vote on that affects the election next would come into effect during the fall Senate election and would not affect this election. Along with that, we cannot add a bill to the table today to make the changes to this election policy since we already passed the agenda. And since we passed the agenda, we can no longer modify it. And because of that, basically, this version of election policy will be in effect for the election unless we suspend the article that allows us to reconsider it and then reconsider it. That's the only way at this point election policy can change before the election starts. I yield.
Clarification. It was discussed last week in the executive meeting as well that because last week's bill passed, unless this is voted down this week, this is the bill that passed last week is what will be in effect if this does not conclude. Does that make sense? Happy to answer questions if that didn't make sense. I yield.
Is there any further discussion for suspending House Rules 3710B? Because that is what the motion we are in right now. Chief Justice?
That for this specifically, that five senators voted for this. You have one senator who abstained, which was the pro temp. And I think that you can consider that 5 people voted for that. It wasn't very much of a close, it was not that close of a call. And if you weren't there for that meeting, then maybe consider trusting the other senators and their judgment instead of reconsidering this. I yield.
Webb?
Slow, but if we don't get to announcements, can we even announce the election if we're still
Nope.
stuck in this? Okay, and then the second part is, don't we have 9 senators, and I know one senator who most likely would have an opinion on this bill is not here to discuss it, so I think that's the biggest part of why we should reconsider. Or I did the House rules thing. I'm sorry, the House rules thing.
Senator Beckman?
People not here just say, oh, they would have a good opinion on this. They're not here. Their opinion in this point is invalid. If they wanted to be
All right,
here,
this isn't really on discussion of suspending House rules, so I'm just going to cut
well,
you
that's
off.
addressing her point.
She rounded it out at the end, unfortunately. Senator Rose?
To call the question.
We have another motion to call to question, second by Senator Beckman. Moving into voting on the call to question. All those in favor of the call to question? That passes unanimously. All right. Going into voting on the motion to suspend House Rules 3710B. All those in favor of suspending not House Rules, Robert's Rules 3710B. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? All those who abstain? That motion dies 1-5-0. We're back into just discussion of 2526-18. Senator Novak.
End discussion.
We have a motion to end discussion, second by Senator Pena. All right, so we have the motion. So going into discussion of ending discussion. Is there any discussion for ending discussion? Senator Novak?
I just want to explain the reason why I'm making this motion is because the point of Treasurer Weddle's original discussion was to amend it. We can't amend it, so at this point there's no more reason to continue discussion on it. I yield.
Alrighty, is there any further discussion for ending discussion? Seeing no further discussion, we'll go into voting. All those in favor of ending discussion, please raise your hand. All those opposed, all those who abstain, that passes 6-0-0. We're now moving on to announcements. Election announcement. Our election committee chair.
As the election committee chair, at the moment, election is now open. Insert ringing bell. I didn't have a bell. You can pick up your packets in the CSI suite, or you can print them out from the Engage site under SGU. Today, you can also announce your candidacy during open forum. I yield.
All right, going on to the second announcement of the election committee chair, sir. Yeah.
Why are they the election committee?
Because the previous election committee chair election was invalid.
Oh, okay. All right.
So, yeah.
Okay, cool.
There is the secondary announcement listed in announcements for the election committee chair election.
We didn't review that, but to revote?
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for the clarification. Yes, to revote on the election committee chair due to during the emergency meeting, the process that was followed was incorrect. So we do need to revote on an election chair.
Alrighty, so entering the election period as policy dictates, it follows pro temp election, so starts off with senator nominations first. If no nominations are made, it's opened up to the rest of the table.
Does the election policy bill that passed last week not state that the same rules that apply in a president pro tempore election will be used to
Right.
elect a new chair, an exception
Never
being
mind.
that all members of business meeting Horseshoe are eligible, may be nominated? I yield back to the chair.
You are correct. I see that has not been updated in policy yet. That's my apologies. I was just looking at our current policies that are on Engage. My bad. So anyone can be nominated in the Horseshoe. Nomination period is now open, starting with Treasurer Weddle.
I'd like to nominate Secretary LaSorsa as election committee chair,
Is
being that they
there
are
a
the
second?
one executive member.
I'm just going to ask the advisor, is there a required second for this? This was kind of confusion in the Sunday meeting as well. That's what I'm wondering. This was a confusion point. Say again? It follows for the pro temp, and this is my question. Yeah.
Under the pro temp election, at least how we ran it last fall, we did require all I forgot the word.
Nominations?
All nominations to be seconded by a second person.
Okay.
So if we are following pro temp, we do need a second approval of a nomination.
Got you. So,
Given the carve-out, I guess, for election committee chair specifically, that it's any member of the Horseshoe, it's not just senators, what does that do insofar as seconding?
senators are the only ones with seconding power. So, senator would have to second it no matter who makes a nomination. All right. Anyways, a nomination was made. Is there a second? Seeing no second, that dies. Senator Novak.
I'd like to make a nomination for our Chief of Staff, our Director of PR, our Chief Justice, and our head of esports. If I can make all nominations at once for election committee chair. Can I do that, or should I just do it? Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'd first like to nominate our chief of staff for election committee chair.
Is there a second? Second by Senator Khan. Do you accept? All right. Senator Novak.
I'd also like to make a motion to have our director of PR be a nomination.
Is there a second? Second by Senator Pena. Do you accept? All right. Senator Novak.
And finally, I'd like to make a nomination for our esports president.
Is there a second? Second by Senator Pena. Do you accept? Wildcat Esports. I need a yes or no. Like right now. Yeah. You would be chairing the election committee, dealing with anything administering the election. As it currently stands, your contract would be as follows: must attend, oversee, and chair all election committee meetings, must write agendas for the election committee meetings, must hand out and collect all election-related materials, must give a weekly report to the SGU meeting of the election process, must create the election. This individual will only serve for the duration of the election when deemed appropriate by the vice president. This position is not stipended. By signing this contract, the individual understands they're no longer eligible to run in the election in which they are served, must explicitly state in the committee's transition document which information is non-confidential following the conclusion of the election when approved by the SU advisor. This contract will be considered null and void following the end of the election period in which they have agreed to serve. This does not nullify any currently withstanding contract and acts as addition. Yes or no on the nomination? Alrighty. Is there any further nominations? President Lunaharo and then Treasurer.
I'd like to nominate our CFB president.
Is there a second? Second by Senator Beckman. Do you accept or deny? All right. Is there any further nominations? Treasurer Weddle.
Am I allowed to nominate our president pro tempore if she's not present? I yield to her.
She can't accept, so. Is there any further nominations? Wildcat Esports. Is there a second? Second by Senator Novak. Do you accept or decline?
I decline.
All right. Webb. Senator Khan.
Senator Khan, I'm sorry.
Is there a second? Second by Senator Beckman. Do you accept or decline?
I have to decline. I'm graduating.
Alrighty. Is there any further nominations? Wildcat Esports. We have a nomination for Senator Beckman. Is there a second? Second by Senator Capo. Do you accept or decline? All right. Is there any further nominations? Wildcat Esports. Is there a second? Second by Senator Beckman. Do you accept or decline?
I'll accept.
All right. Is there any further nominations? Treasurer Weddle.
Some clarifying questions, right? My understanding is for at least how it was run last time we elected a chair, the nominees were asked to step out of the room, and given the Senate is the one voting on it, for the senators who aren't present, it's just going to, I guess, it's going to be a little messy. Is it just going to be a little messy? I'm just going to push that.
Oh, yeah, it'll be very messy.
Okay, thank you.
As of now, I think only one senator has been nominated and accepted.
Is there any further nominations? Senator Novak.
So, as somebody who nominated two people who accepted the nominations, but I also have a nomination, if we go into executive session, I'll be forced to the room, and I can't say why I picked them.
Correct.
If that happens, before we do that, can I send a message out to the Senate Pell Ren to put out my points for the other senators to read or possibly discuss, or would that be against policy?
discussion in executive session is confidential, so, I mean, do with that information what you will. Treasurer Weddle?
The pro temp election process does expect people to explain the reasoning behind their nomination when they make their nomination, so I don't think it would be inappropriate to explain it in the room at the moment. I yield back to our chair to add input if he wants.
Yeah, I mean, that is the case, as he stated. Senator Novak?
I'd like to say, first, I nominated our Chief of Staff, Jura, because she's been running Student Success Committee pretty well, and I've been liking how she's running it. She also seems to be on top of things when it comes to being the Chief of Staff and helping the other directors do their stuff. And due to this, I think with a mixture of her work ethic and her current capabilities that she's shown, she would be able to lead the election in a non-biased and fair manner. Along with this, well, I don't know Pin the best. I have had multiple experiences of Pin and of how he's been running esports, and I think of how he's run esports and also has been involved in election committee in the past, back in fall. He would also make a good potential election committee chair, just due to prior experience with election committee and with having to already run one of the most popular and most heavy involvement orgs under our student government.
Alrighty. Is there any further nominations? Yeah.
Quorum right now.
Mm-hmm.
If one of the nominees is a senator and steps out of the room, you lose quorum.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to vote?
Yep. That's why I said it was messy.
So is there a point? I yield.
Senator Novak?
You could just not do executive session and just skip discussion and go into secret ballot.
That you can. Senator Rose?
Suspend whatever outlines quorum. But I don't think we should do that, especially with Robert's rules.
Okay. Is there any further nominations? Seeing no further nominations, we will go into discussion. Is there any discussion? President Lunahara.
When it comes to secret ballot, do we have to have quorum to vote on secret ballots?
You have to have quorum to do anything. President Lunahara.
Whoever nominated Priscilla Novak, would it be possible to rescind, because once she leaves, we won't have quorum, we can't vote on anything.
Inquiry, are the nominees not allowed to vote? I yield back to our Senate.
Nominees are allowed to vote. People who have been nominated are asked to leave the room in executive session, which would make them not, but if we don't enter an executive session, senators are allowed to vote because they're senators. Treasurer Weddle?
If we make a motion to enter executive session and then we set executive session to adjourn at a specific time, the senator comes back into the room, do we not regain quorum? I yield back to our chair, meaning that we would then be able to vote.
Yeah, that's correct. If we don't vote during executive session, we don't vote during executive session. Senator Novak?
I think I'm allowed to abstain as there was a conflict of interest, or would that be unadvised by our advisors?
In this case, I think they have to be allowed to abstain, because it's one of the reasons outlined in Robert's rules is a conflict of interest. I would definitely recommend that they have to be able to abstain. I yield.
Alrighty, Webb? No, the pro temp election.
Elect the committee chair. No. Election chair.
Yeah. Is there any further discussion for this? This is the election for, we're in the discussion for the election of election chair. Treasurer Weddle?
Entertain a motion to enter executive session until 1:45, push back open forum until 1:50, and immediately following the conclusion of executive session, if quorum is regained, have a secret ballot vote for our new election committee chair. I yield.
Is there a so heard? So moved by Senator Beckman. Is there a second? Seconded by Senator Pena. Is there any discussion for this motion? Senator Novak?
Just a question to our advisors to make sure we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's. That would be valid, allow us to legally vote on the election chair without me having to resend my nomination, correct?
Our advisor.
I would say yes, that's unfortunately your best option, but I would like to make a note to the Senate that if by chance you still don't feel comfortable at 1:45 when we come out of executive session voting, you don't have to. You have the option to make another motion to extend it if by chance you don't feel comfortable at that point. But other than that, I think yes, that's your best option at this point. I yield.
All right. Is there any further discussion for the motion of entering executive session until 1:45, if it goes that long, and pushing back open forum to 1:50? Let me restate. Well, I'll restate it if there's no further discussion. Seeing no further discussion, we'll go and voting on entering a period of executive session with discussion limited to 1:45, and then pushing back open forum to 1:50. All those in favor of entering executive session as stated previously and pushing open forum back to 1:50 with the stipulation of executive session ending at 1:45, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Was that an okay. And all those who abstain? That passes 6-0. I would like to ask all the nominees to please leave the room, and all audience members please leave the room. Alrighty, we are back into, I believe, just discussion now since we exited executive session. Can't remember if the motion had a vote in it. Did it? Okay. So we now go into a secret ballot voting. If I can have the Chief Justice pass out. Senator Novak.
Just a point of, I guess, infant clarity or whatever. For the secret ballot, since I am abstaining due to conflict of interest, does the Chief Justice want me to hand in a blank slip or
Yes,
not have a
I
slip?
want you to hand in a blank slip.
Got it.
Everyone got a pen or a pen? Also, please don't roll up the slips because they're kind of hard. Like, you can just hold it sometimes.
Yeah, just-
Two-thirds of a, they just become the presumptive the candidate with the most vote becomes the presumptive nominee, and there's a second.
So this is the first round of voting.
Get a 2/3 vote, right? Then it doesn't pass. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. And open forum opens at 1:50. Okay, thank you all.
The results are as follows. Was elected as 2/3. All right. We had a motion to entertain to push back open forum to 1:55. Is there a so heard? So moved by Senator Beckman. Is there a second? Second by Senator Rose. All right. Going to voting on pushing back open forum. All those in favor of pushing back open forum, please raise your hand.
I think, point of order, don't we have discussion on that?
Is there discussion on that?
I think Webb does. I yield.
No. Does the motion itself have discussion
I'm
on that?
pretty sure.
Okay. So the only discussion of pushing back open forum web.
You have a possibility to lose quorum, and I got swear-ins.
Mhm.
That we should not do that. Just gonna put that out there. We should not do this. Thank you.
All right. Senator Novak.
We can do swear-ins without having quorum.
Yeah. It's just an open forum. It's not a thing we need a motion in or anything. All right. Seeing no further discussion, we'll go into voting on. Yeah, Director of PR. We are now in open forum. Can I have all the swear-ins come to the center? I apologize, Sarat. We didn't get to your resolution today, so you're not being sworn in today. I apologize. Yeah.
When I say state your
Keep going.
when I say state your organization and position, you will state your organization and position. All right. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Will faithfully uphold the student government and Utica Constitution and carry out the duties of state your organization and position to the best of my ability, and will represent the students of SUNY Poly in a fair and unbiased manner. Congratulations.
I want to entertain a motion to open Resolution 2526-22 for the senator nomination. So heard by Senator Rose, second by Senator Beckman. Going discussion on reopening Resolution 2526-22. Is there any discussion? Senator Novak? If we keep quorum, we keep quorum. If we don't, we don't. All right, seeing no further discussion, we'll go into voting on reopening Resolution 2526-22. All those in favor of reopening 2526-22, please raise your hand. All those opposed and all those who abstain, that passes 5-1-0. We're now in Resolution 2526-22. Can I have a senator, since Senator Ritchie is not here, just read Resolution 2526-22? All right, Senator Beckman.
Do I have to get a second?
Whole thing.
All right. Motion to accept resolution number 2526-22.
Is there a second? Second by Senator Khan. Continue.
We, the Senate of SUNY Poly Student Government at Utica, do hereby resolve whereas a less than optimal number of senators in operation, and whereas several committees are at minimum attendance, and whereas an internal hiring process took place, and therefore be it enacted Secreta Fatima, I'm sorry for that's probably butchered, will be appointed as acting senator, and enacted Secreta Fatima will fill an opening position for senator. Therefore, be it resolved Secreta Fatima will act as an additional representative for their class year, and be it further resolved Secreta Fatima will serve as an acting senator until the spring executive election, and be it further resolved the student body of SUNY Poly will be better represented, and be it finally resolved the SGU Senate will be able to operate at a more efficient level.
All right, going discussion of resolution. Is there any discussion? President Lunahara.
Senator until the spring executive election. Didn't we just start the executive election?
Until
was it
it's until the conclusion result
Okay.
of this. Sorry for clarification. Senator Rose.
To ask the appointee if they would like to serve until the end of the academic year. I yield.
Sri,
Go to the mic.
is there an audience mic? I apologize, Wildcat Media. If you could come up to the mic.
Yeah.
Senator Novak.
Modify the resolution to change it to be, wait, where was that in the motion?
Resolved.
I was talking about, modify the second bullet point to be, instead, be it further resolved, Secret Fatima will serve as acting senator until the end of the academic year, or the spring semester.
All right, we have a motion, seconded by Senator Beckman. Going discussion on the motion to amend bullet point 2 of the resolved. Is there any discussion for this amendment? Treasurer Weddle?
Are the acting senators only serve until a special election or an executive election is called?
This is correct. However, the resolution states otherwise, so I'm going to refer to the advisor on an answer to that question. Alrighty. Then that is how it is stated. Senator Novak?
My motion then.
Alrighty. Is there any further discussion for this resolution? Treasurer Weddle?
Entertain a motion to have the horseshoe ask 3 questions of the candidate. Following that, go into executive discussion to discuss the resolution and then vote by secret ballot following the conclusion of executive session.
Is there so heard? Is that a so heard? So heard by Senator Novak. Is there a second? Seeing no second, that motion dies. Back in discussion of the resolution as a whole. Senator Novak?
I make a motion to do 3 questions to our candidate from the horseshoe before then just going into a period of voting.
All right, we have a motion to ask 3 questions of the candidate and then go immediately into a period of voting. Second by Senator Beckman. Going discussion on this motion. Is there any discussion for this motion? Senator Khan?
Does candidacy period end?
Candidacy period for, for like the election? That ends on April 2nd, to my knowledge. Yes, that ends on April 2nd.
Okay.
The vote concludes on the 16th as scheduled. I mean, if it gets pushed back, it gets pushed back. But that is when the acting appointment would end, is at the end of the voting period. All right. Is there any further discussion on the motion made? Treasurer Weddle?
The Senate wants to publicly vote on whether or not they accept the nominee while the nominee is standing in the room. That's their decision, but I think secret ballot provides... I don't think secret ballot is unreasonable in this case. It's usually done for situations where we have a nominee for org head appointments, that sort of thing, because your vote is your vote. It shouldn't be swayed by, voting whether or not to accept someone who's literally standing next to you, right? That's it's an awkward position to be in, and I would just leave it at that.
Is there any further discussion for the motion made? Okay, Senator Novak. Yeah. We reopened discussion of resolution.
Period, and then do no executive session. We can still motion to change the vote.
You mentioned motion to ask 3 questions and go immediately into voting. You didn't specify any sort of voting, but we would be going into voting, and our base vote is just a public vote.
Can I still make a motion after this motion then to make it secret vote?
There's no discussion period, so there's no time to make a motion to change the vote.
Okay, I guess I'll resend then.
All right, the motion rescinded. We're back in discussion of the resolution as a whole. Senator Novak.
Make a motion to ask the candidate 3 questions from the horseshoe, then go into a period of secret ballot.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second? Well, we have lost quorum. I apologize to read Fatima, but we are now out and adjourned at 58. Yes, you can. Sorry, I apologize. We are in open forum. I did just adjourn, so the meeting is over.